The library smells like old paper and possibility. I've worked here for 3 years now, and I've learned that Thursday afternoons are the quietest, just the whisper of pages turning and the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. That's when I first saw him. He couldn't have been more than 6 years old, swimming in a school uniform that looked expensive but somehow wrong on his small frame. His black hair fell into his eyes as he stood before the children's section, tiny hands clutching a worn copy of The Giving Tree. What struck me wasn't just that he was alone, plenty of kids came alone, but the way he held himself. Like he was trying to disappear. "Do you need help finding something?" I asked softly, crouching down to his level. He flinched. Actually flinched. Then those dark eyes met mine for just a second before dropping to the floor. He shook his head, barely a movement at all. Something in my chest twisted. My Omega instincts, maybe, or just basic human decency. "Well, I'm Sora. If you want, I have a really cozy reading corner over there." I pointed to the alcove I'd decorated with cushions and string lights on my own dime. "Nobody will bother you there." He followed me like a shadow. I didn't push. I just settled into my usual spot and picked up where I'd left off in my own book, letting him observe, letting him breathe. After 20 minutes, he sat down 3 cushions away. Progress. This became our routine. Every Tuesday and Thursday, he'd appear at 3:30 exactly, always alone, always with the same worn books. The 3rd week, I started reading aloud, nothing directed at him, just casual, as if I always narrated children's books to empty air. By the 4th week, he'd moved to the cushion right next to me. "My name is Jihoon," he whispered one afternoon, so quietly I almost missed it. My heart soared. "That's a wonderful name, Jihoon. My papa chose it. He said it means wisdom and kindness." His voice was small but clear. "But papa isn't very kind anymore." Red flags waved in my mind, but not the ones you'd expect. His uniform was pristine, if ill-fitting. No bruises marked his skin. He wasn't starving or scared of adults. But his eyes, God, his eyes held a loneliness so deep it made my throat tight. "I'm sure your papa loves you very much," I said carefully. "He's always working. He owns many buildings." Jihoon traced the spine of his book. "The nannies say he's very important. That people are scared of him. An important alpha. Probably one of those corporate types who measured worth in 1 and square footage." I'd met enough alphas in my life to know the type, all commanding presence and 0 emotional availability. My own father had been one, before he decided an Omega son was too embarrassing for his legacy. "Are you scared of him?" I asked, keeping my tone light. Jihoon considered this seriously. "No, I wish he'd read to me. Like you do." That was the moment I stopped seeing him as just another library patron and started seeing him as the lonely child he truly was. I made a decision then, probably a stupid one, but I couldn't help myself. "How about this? Every time you come, we'll read together. And maybe you could tell your papa about the stories? Share them with him." Jihoon's face lit up like dawn breaking. "Really? You'll keep reading to me?" "As long as you want me to." Over the next month, Jihoon transformed before my eyes. He started smiling, really smiling, not the careful expression he wore like armor. He brought me drawings, crayon masterpieces of dragons and libraries and stick figures labeled Sora and Jihoon, holding hands. He talked about his favorite foods, his fear of thunderstorms, his secret wish for a dog. What he didn't talk about much was home. The few details I gathered painted a picture. A penthouse apartment that was really big and really quiet, a father who left before sunrise and returned after bedtime, a rotating cast of nannies who were efficient but cold. No mention of a mother. No mention of friends. "Don't you have playdates?" I asked once, immediately regretting the question when his face fell. "The nannies say I'm too delicate. That papa would be angry if I got hurt." He picked at a loose thread on his sleeve. "But I'm not delicate. I'm just, nobody wants to play with me anyway." My Omega nature screamed at the injustice. This child needed needed warmth, needed someone to care if he laughed or cried. And his alpha father, whoever he was failing him spectacularly. I started bringing snacks, Nothing fancy, just the homemade cookies my grandmother taught me to bake, fruit slices, rice cakes. Jihoon devoured them like he'd never tasted love made edible. Maybe he hadn't. Then came the Thursday that changed everything. It was 6 o'clock, past closing time, but I couldn't send Jihoon home yet. We were on the last chapter of The Little Prince, and he was completely absorbed, his small hand gripping my sleeve unconsciously. I'd called the main number listed in his library card twice, straight to voicemail both times. The library door opened with a bang that echoed like a gunshot. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees, or maybe that was just my instinctive Omega response to the alpha presence that suddenly dominated the space. I looked up and my breath caught. He was tall, over 6 feet easily, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Sharp jaw, sharper eyes that scanned the library like a predator searching for prey. Power rolled off him in waves, the kind of commanding presence that made even other alphas submit. His scent hit me next, pine and steel and something darker, like smoke. His eyes locked onto Jihoon, then slid to me. Narrowed. Jihoon, come here. Now. His voice was arctic. Jihoon scrambled up so fast he dropped the book, all that precious progress crumbling as he became small and scared again. The alpha's gaze dropped to my hand on Jihoon's shoulder, a protective gesture I hadn't realized I'd made. Something dangerous flashed in those eyes. Who are you? I stood up, forced my voice steady despite every Omega instinct screaming at me to submit to this predator. I'm Sora. I work here. And you're late. His expression could have cut glass. This was going to be complicated. The alpha's eyes could have frozen hell itself. Up close, he was even more intimidating, broad shoulders that blocked out the warm library lighting, a face carved from ice and arrogance, and that scent. God, that scent was overwhelming my Omega senses, making my knees weak even as my spine stayed rigid. Late. His voice was soft now, which was somehow worse than the command from before. I wasn't aware I needed to report my schedule to a library employee. Papa, please, Jihoon's small voice cracked. Silence. One word and the child went mute. My heart shattered watching Jihoon's face crumple. Something in me snapped. Maybe it was stupid, definitely it was stupid, but I stepped between them, my body language protective despite the fact that this alpha could probably break me with one hand. Don't talk to him like that. My voice shook, but I held his stare. He's 6 years old and he's been waiting for you for 2.5 hours. The least you can do is... The least I can do? He moved closer, and I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. His scent intensified, aggressive, meant to make me submit. You know nothing about what I do or don't do for my son. Who gave you permission to insert yourself into his life? To touch him? To fill his head with stories? I interrupted, my Omega instincts screaming at me to shut up but my heart refusing to back down. Basic human attention? Yes, how terrible of me. His jaw clenched. For a terrifying moment, I thought he might actually hurt me. Then Jihoon made a sound, a tiny, heartbroken whimper that cut through the tension like a knife. The alpha's eyes flickered to his son, and something passed across his face too quickly to name. Pain maybe. Or regret. Then it was gone, replaced by that cold mask. Jihoon. Now. But Papa. Now. I watched helplessly as Jihoon gathered his things with trembling hands, tears streaming silently down his face. As he passed me, I squeezed his shoulder gently. The alpha noticed, his expression darkening further. Stay away from my son, he said, low enough that only I could hear. Or you'll regret it. Then they were gone, and I was alone in the library, shaking with adrenaline and fury and something else I couldn't name. I pulled out my phone and searched his name from the library records. Kang Minho, CEO of Kang Industries, one of the largest conglomerates in Korea. Estimated worth in the billions. Known in business circles as the Ice King for his ruthless takeover tactics and complete lack of mercy in negotiations. And a widower. His wife had died 4 years ago in a car accident. After that, Minho had apparently become even more cold, even more isolated. My heart hurt for Jihoon all over again. The next Tuesday, Jihoon didn't come. Or Thursday. Or the following week. I tried not to watch the door, tried not to feel the crushing disappointment every time 3:30 came and went. I told myself it was better this way, that I'd overstepped, that the child had a parent who could provide for him even if that parent was emotionally constipated. But I couldn't stop thinking about Jihoon's tears. His loneliness. The way he'd lit up during our reading sessions like a flower finally getting sunlight. 3 weeks after that confrontation, I was restocking the children's section when a shadow fell over me. I looked up into Kang Minho's cold eyes and nearly dropped the books in my arms. Mr. Kang. My son won't eat. His voice was controlled, but something churned beneath it. He stopped talking again. The pediatrician says there's nothing physically wrong, but he's regressing. 3 different child psychologists have failed to get through to him. I stared at him, unsure what he wanted me to say. He draws pictures of you. Minho's hands clenched at his sides. Constantly. He cries for at night. He's asked me 17 times when he can come back to the library. Then let him come back, I said, keeping my voice gentle despite my racing heart. So he can get more attached to a stranger? So you can fill his head with false hope about? He stopped abruptly, jaw working. About what? Family? Happiness. I set down my books and stood, tired of craning my neck. You're his father. You should be the one giving him those things. You think I don't know that? The mask cracked, and underneath I saw something raw and painful. You think I don't see how he looks at you? How he never looks at me? The vulnerability disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. Minho straightened, his alpha presence reasserting itself. I have a proposition. Come work for me as Jihoon's private tutor. Name your price. I blinked. What? You clearly have some effect on him. My nannies are competent but he doesn't connect with them. He needs. Minho's voice tightened. He needs whatever it is you provide. 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. I'll pay you triple your current salary. I have a job. I'll make it worth your while to leave it. 4 times your salary. Plus benefits. My mind reeled. That kind of money would change my life. I could finally afford to move out of my cramped studio, help my grandmother with her medical bills, maybe even save for graduate school. But working for this man? Entering his territory? Why should I trust you? I asked. You threatened me. Something flickered in his eyes. Because Jihoon trusts you. And I. He looked away, jaw clenched. I don't know how to help my own son. But you do. The admission seemed to cost him everything. This proud, powerful alpha was essentially begging me to save his relationship with his child. Despite everything, I felt sympathy stir in my chest. I have conditions, I said. His eyes snapped back to mine, surprised. Such as, you don't get to order me around like your employees. You don't get to dismiss Jihoon's feelings or mine. And, I took a breath, you have to be present. Really present. Not just in the same room, but engaged. Jihoon doesn't need another nanny. He needs his father. Minho's expression was unreadable. The silence stretched so long I thought he'd refuse, thought his pride would never allow him to accept such terms from an Omega library worker who dared to challenge him. Finally, he extended his hand. Deal. His palm was warm against mine, his grip firm and overwhelming. The touch sent an unexpected jolt through my system, my Omega recognizing his alpha in a way that made my breath catch. From his slight pause, I knew he felt it too. This was either the best decision I'd ever made or the worst. I suspected I'd find out which very soon. I'll start Monday, I said, pulling my hand back before I did something stupid like keep holding on. Someone will pick you up at 3. He turned to leave, then paused. And Sora? Thank you. The words sounded rusty, like he hadn't said them in years. Maybe he hadn't. As I watched him leave, I wondered what I'd just agreed to. Working in close quarters with an alpha that powerful, that broken, that magnetically compelling despite his ice-cold exterior? My Omega instincts whispered that I was walking into something far more dangerous than I realized. They were right. The penthouse was everything I expected and nothing I hoped for. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul's glittering skyline, designer furniture arranged with mathematical precision, marble floors so polished I could see my reflection. Beautiful. Cold. Utterly lifeless. Like the man who owned it. Sora! Jihoon's cry of joy shattered the sterile silence as he launched himself at me. I caught him, stumbling slightly, breathing in his little boy scent of soap and happiness. Over his shoulder, I saw Minho watching from his study doorway, expression unreadable. I missed you, Jihoon whispered against my shoulder. So much. I missed you too, sweetheart. I pulled back to look at him. He'd lost weight, dark circles shadowing his eyes. Rage at Minho flared hot in my chest, but I swallowed it. Getting angry wouldn't help Jihoon now. The first week was careful. Professional. I arrived at 3, worked with Jihoon on reading and homework, occasionally saw Minho's shadow passing by. He kept his distance, which should have been a relief. Instead, it felt like failure, like he was breaking our deal already. Then Friday came, and everything shifted. I was cooking dinner. The nanny had looked scandalized when I dismissed her, but the kitchen had clearly never been used for actual cooking. I couldn't let that stand. Jihoon sat on the counter, chattering about his day while I made kimchi jjigae, nothing fancy, just the comfort food my grandmother taught me. It smells like home, Jihoon said softly. My heart cracked. What does home smell like, Jihoon? I don't know. But I think it smells like this. The apartment door opened. Minho scent hit me first, pine and steel, but underneath, exhaustion. He appeared in the kitchen doorway at 6:30, a full 2 hours earlier than usual, and froze. Papa! Jihoon beamed. Sora's cooking. Real food, not the stuff the nanny orders. Minho's eyes traveled from his son's joy-lit face to me at the stove, ladle in hand, probably looking completely out of place in his pristine kitchen. Something flickered in his expression. I made extra, I said, trying to sound casual despite my racing heart. If you're hungry. He should have refused. Should have retreated to his study with some excuse about work. Instead, he loosened his tie and said, I haven't had kimchi jjigae in years. We ate together. Jihoon filled the silence with constant chatter, and I watched Minho watch his son like he was seeing him for the first time. When Minho took his first bite, his eyes closed briefly. Something about that moment felt intensely private, like witnessing someone remember what it meant to be human. It's good, he said quietly. Thank you. After that night, Minho came home earlier. 6:30 became 6, then 5:30. He started sitting with us during lessons, initially just observing, then gradually participating. I caught him smiling once when Jihoon successfully read a difficult passage. It transformed his face completely. This was dangerous. I was starting to see past the ice to the man underneath, and that man was far more compelling than he had any right to be. 3 weeks in, my heat started. I woke up at dawn in the guest room Minho had insisted I use for convenience, my body burning, my Omega instincts screaming. Horror flooded through me. My suppressants should have held for another month, but stress sometimes triggered early cycles. And I was in an alpha's home. An unmated alpha's home. I needed to leave. Immediately. But when I stumbled to the door, my legs gave out. The guest room was at the far end of the penthouse, isolated from the main living areas for privacy. I wouldn't make it to the elevator. My phone was in the kitchen, charging. Stupid, stupid, stupid. I crawled back to bed, buried myself in blankets, and prayed Minho would leave for work before my scent spread through the apartment. The universe wasn't that kind. A knock on my door, sharp and urgent. Sora. Minho's voice, strained. Open the door. Go away, I managed, my voice barely human. Please. Just go. You're in heat. In my home. With my son here. The pause. I can smell you from the living room. If I can smell you, any alpha within range of this building will sense it soon. Open the door or I'm breaking it down. He would too. I could hear it in his voice. With the last of my strength, I unlocked the door and retreated to the bed. Minho entered and immediately stopped breathing through his nose, his control visible in every rigid line of his body. His eyes were darker than I'd ever seen them, pupils blown wide. An alpha responding to an omega in heat. Biology overwhelming civilization. I called a doctor, he said, voice rough. They're bringing suppressants. But Sora, your scent, it's affecting me. I need to move you somewhere more secure until... Don't touch me. Panic edged my words. Please. If you touch me right now, I won't. He stripped off his suit jacket, threw it over the chair, and gripped the doorframe hard enough that his knuckles went white. I won't touch you. But I can't leave you vulnerable either. I'm going to stand outside this door until the doctor arrives. No one gets past me. Understand? The protectiveness in his voice made my omega purr even through the haze of heat. Jihoon is with the nanny in the panic room. Completely sealed, air filtered. He can't sense anything. Miho's jaw clenched. I won't let anything happen to either of you. The next hours were agony. Through the door, I could hear Miho pacing, his alpha instincts clearly warring with his control. Once, I heard him punch the wall. Another time, I heard him on the phone, his voice deadly. If those suppressants aren't here in 5 minutes, your hospital will face a lawsuit that destroys you. Am I clear? He was protecting me. Violently, excessively, but protecting me nonetheless. When the doctor finally arrived and administered the suppressants, the relief was immediate. I slept, exhausted and mortified. When I woke hours later, evening light streamed through the windows. A tray of food sat on the nightstand. Nothing heavy, just rice porridge and fruit. A note in sharp handwriting. Eat. We'll discuss this tomorrow. I should have been furious at his presumption. Instead, I felt cared for in a way I'd never experienced. The next evening, Miho called me to his study. He looked exhausted, hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. This can't happen again, he said without preamble. I know. You'll move into the master suite. I blinked. What? The guest room is too isolated. Too vulnerable. The master suite has better security, reinforced doors, a panic button. He wasn't looking at me. And it's closer to Jihoon's room. If something happens... Miho, that's your room. I'll take the guest room. Finally, his eyes met mine, and the intensity there stole my breath. I won't have you at risk in my home. I won't. His voice cracked slightly. I can't. The unspoken words hung between us. I can't lose someone else. Okay, I whispered. Something shifted in that moment. Some boundary we'd been carefully maintaining crumbled. Miho crossed the space between us slowly, giving me time to retreat. I didn't. He stopped inches away, close enough that his scent enveloped me. You're making me feel things I swore I'd never feel again, he said roughly. You and Jihoon. You're... The study door burst open. One of Miho's assistants, face pale. Sir, we have a situation. Lee Corp is launching a hostile takeover. They've been buying shares through shell companies for months. The board meeting is in an hour and... Miho's expression shuddered immediately, the vulnerable man disappearing behind the ruthless Postpone it. Sir, if you don't attend they'll... I said postpone it. His voice was ice. Nothing is more important than... His eyes flickered to me. Handle it. I'll review everything tomorrow. After the assistant left, Miho turned back to me. Where were we? But the moment was broken. I stepped back, my heart hammering. You should go. Your company can wait. Miho. He caught my hand, and the touch sent electricity through me. Say that again. What? My name. You've never said it before. Just Mr. Thumbs or nothing. His thumb traced circles on my wrist, over my pulse point where my scent was strongest. Say it again. Miho, I breathed. He closed his eyes like the sound caused him pain. When he opened them, they were blazing. I'm going to kiss you now. Stop me if... I pulled him down and kissed him first. His control shattered. He kissed me like a man drowning, like I was oxygen and salvation and everything he'd denied himself for years. My back hit the wall, his body pressing against mine, one hand cupping my face with surprising gentleness while the other gripped my hip hard enough to bruise. This was dangerous. This was stupid. This was everything I'd been trying not to want. When we finally broke apart, Both breathing hard, Minho pressed his forehead to mine. "This is a mistake," he whispered. "I know. We should stop. I know." Neither of us moved. And when he kissed me again, slower this time, almost reverent, I knew we were both already lost. The next morning, Minho was gone before I woke up. No note. No message. Just the cold absence where warmth had been hours before. I found Jihoon eating breakfast alone, the nanny hovering nearby. His smile faltered when he saw my face. Children always know. Did Papa leave early again? I think so, sweetheart. I forced brightness into my voice, but inside, something was breaking. Of course Minho had run. Men like him didn't do relationships, they did transactions. Last night had been a mistake he'd already erased. 3 days passed. Minho came home late, left early, and avoided me completely. When we accidentally crossed paths, his expression was that familiar ice, like I was a stranger. Like he hadn't kissed me like I was his entire world. On the 4th day, I found my severance package on the kitchen counter. 3 months' salary. A glowing reference letter. And a brief note, "Thank you for your service. This arrangement is no longer necessary." My hands shook holding the paper. Not necessary. I was not necessary. No. Jihoon's voice made me turn. He stood in the doorway, tears streaming down his face, holding his tablet. On the screen was a text from his father. "Sora is leaving. Be strong." "Jihoon. He's sending you away because he's scared." Jihoon's voice cracked. "I heard him on the phone last night. He told someone he can't love us because everyone he loves dies." The words hit like a physical blow. Suddenly, everything made sense. The distance. Minho wasn't cruel, he was terrified. I knelt down and pulled Jihoon into my arms. "Listen to me. Your papa loves you so much it scares him. And sometimes, when people are scared, they push away the things they need most. Like you. Like me," I admitted. "But Jihoon, I need you to understand something. I'm not leaving because I want to. And I'm not leaving you, not really. No matter where I am, you'll always. Then don't go." He clung to me desperately. "Please, Sora. You're the only one who makes us happy. You make Papa smile. You make him come home. Please don't leave us alone again." My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. But what could I do? Stay where I wasn't wanted? Force myself into Minho's life when he'd made his choice clear? I was still holding Jihoon when the apartment door opened. Minho froze in the entryway, briefcase in hand, his eyes taking in the scene. His son sobbing, me in tears, the severance package on the counter. "Jihoon, go to your room," Minho said quietly. "No." Jihoon turned on his father with a fury I'd never seen. "You're mean. You're a coward. Mama died and you got scared, but that doesn't mean." "Jihoon." Minho's voice cracked like thunder. "I hate you." Jihoon screamed and ran. The silence that followed was deafening. Minho stood rigid, his face ashen. Then, slowly, his carefully constructed walls crumbled. He staggered to the couch and sat down hard, head in his hands. "He's right," Minho said hoarsely. "I am a coward. I should have left. Should have walked out and never looked back. Instead, I sat beside him. Tell me about her. Your wife. Hyojin." His voice was barely audible. "We married young. Arrangement, but we grew to care for each other. When Jihoon was born, she was so happy. So alive." He paused, breathing hard. "Then one night, she was driving home from her mother's house. Drunk driver. She died instantly. I'm sorry. I wasn't there." His hands clenched into fists. "I was at a business dinner. Too important to skip. She called me 3 times and I sent her to voicemail. If I'd just answered, if I'd told her to wait and I'd pick her up, she'd still be alive. Jihoon would have his mother. And his voice broke. I swore I'd never let anyone close enough to lose again. That I'd focus on providing for Jihoon, keeping him safe, even if that meant keeping him at distance. That's not living, Minho. That's just surviving." "I know." He finally looked at me, and the raw pain in his eyes made me gasp. "But then you came, and suddenly Jihoon was laughing again. The apartment felt alive. And I started coming home early just to see you both, started remembering what happiness felt like. And it terrified me because you could lose it again. Because I could lose you. He reached out, his hand trembling, and cupped my face. When you went into heat, when I stood outside that door fighting every instinct to claim you, I realized I was already in too deep. You weren't just Jihoon's tutor anymore. You are. The apartment door burst open. Minho's head of security rushed in, face grim. Sir, we have a situation. Lee Corp sent people to your office. They're threatening to release information about. He glanced at me, hesitated. About what? I asked. Minho's jaw clenched. About Jihoon. They've been investigating my private life. They know about you, about how much time you spend here. They're threatening to spin it into a scandal, an unmated Omega living with a powerful alpha and his vulnerable child. They'll paint me as reckless, unfit. Use it to turn the board against me. Ice flooded my veins. This is my fault. This is Lee Corp's fault, Minho said sharply. They're desperate because they're losing. But Sora, they're not wrong about one thing. This situation is complicated. Unclear. And it puts both you and Jihoon at risk. I stood up, decision made. Then I'll leave. Release a statement that I was temporary staff, that. No. Minho stood too, and his alpha presence filled the room. I'm done running. Done hiding. Done pretending I don't feel what I feel. He turned to his security chief. Call an emergency press conference. 1 hour. Sir, what are you? I'm going to make a claim. The world tilted. A claim. An alpha publicly declaring an Omega as theirs. It was binding, serious, and in Minho's position, career-defining. The media would explode. His business rivals would use it as ammunition. His carefully controlled image would shatter. Minho, no, I whispered. Your company, your reputation, mean nothing without you. He took my hands, his grip strong and sure. I've spent 4 years in the cold, Sora. 4 years telling myself I was protecting Jihoon by keeping distance. But I wasn't protecting him, I was suffocating him. Suffocating myself. Then you walked into our lives and reminded me what warmth felt like. I'm nobody, I said, tears spilling over. Just an Omega library worker who. You're everything. His voice was fierce. You're the person who saw my son's loneliness and chose to care. Who challenged me when no one else dared. Who makes kimchi jjigae in my pristine kitchen and leaves books everywhere and taught me that love isn't something to fear, it's something to fight for. He dropped to one knee and my breath stopped. I can't promise I won't be scared sometimes. I can't promise I'll always get it right. But I promise I'll come home. I'll be present. I'll choose you and Jihoon every single day. His eyes shone with unshed tears. Sora, will you let me try? Will you be my mate? My partner? Will you help me remember how to be human? Behind him, I saw Jihoon peeking around the corner, eyes wide and hopeful. Yes, I whispered. Yes, you infuriating alpha. Yes. He stood and kissed me, deep and claiming and full of promise. When we broke apart, Jihoon was crying and laughing and crashing into both of us, his small arms trying to wrap around us both. Does this mean Sora stays? Jihoon asked. Forever, Minho said, looking at me. If Sora will have us. Forever, I agreed. The press conference was chaos. Minho stood before cameras and declared his intention to mate me, his voice steady and sure. The business world reeled. Social media exploded. Lee Corp's hostile takeover collapsed when several board members publicly backed Minho, moved by his courage. 6 months later, I stood in our penthouse, no longer sterile, now filled with books and photos and life, watching Minho read to Jihoon before bed. The same story I'd read that first day at the library. Minho looked up and caught my eye, smiling. A real smile that reached his eyes and transformed him into someone warm and whole. I rested my hand on my stomach, where our second child was just beginning to grow, and smiled back. We'd chosen love over fear. And love had saved us all.